Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Hi, it's Dr. Gemma, and welcome to episode 17 of Cognitive. If you would like to leave a comment about this episode or any episode, you can drop a comment at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com, or you can go to our group on Ravelry, wherever you are more comfortable leaving me a message. It is Sunday evening, February 28th, at 8 p.m. as I record this. We have a lovely windstorm going on out there, and it's cold as heck. So I'm kind of enjoying sitting here with the animals lying around me, working on this and on my knitting projects. I am also working on a big mug. It is a Polly Studios Hogwarts mug. It actually has the Gryffindor House crest on it. This thing has got to be 20 ounces. It's huge. I love it. It's a beautiful, beautiful mug. Beautiful red. Polly does wonderful stuff. And it's full of hot cocoa. My husband, for Valentine's Day, found this stuff called Dutch processed red cocoa, and it's fantastic. That with heavy cream, water, and erythritol sweetener. Oh, what a treat. Okay, so meanwhile, you can leave us a message. You can find me over my YouTube channel, which is creatively named Dr. Gemma, 2 words spelled out, where I have some flash tips on getting through the pandemic and some longer discussions of the strategies I most commonly talk about in therapy. I will not promise to avoid overlap. I have a lot of interest in CFR. This makes me really, really happy. The Knitmores have said they'd be interested, which makes me even insanely happy. So this could happen. Everybody get your vaccines, will you? So I'm not saying there's going to be a cognitive fiber retreat, but I'm looking into it. I'm interested in the possibility. And I think one potential location which Red's Knits, alias Eileen, she and I had talked years ago about having one up in Solvang, which would be a nice midpoint for the northerners to come down. But it is a bit of a haul for the Southern California group, so I'm not sure what we'll do. Cognitive Fiber Retreat used to be in Tehachapi, California, and that was quite a haul for everybody. Nobody got off that hook. But it was only about 90 minutes for me in those days. Solvang would be considerably longer. Solvang's like 3 hours for me. But we'll see. In the meantime, warm thanks to Tiny Shiny Things for the lovely comments regarding the YouTube channel. I really, really appreciate that, and I appreciate that you've been along with us for quite a long time on this cognitive ride. So thank you for that. And also to the Knitmore girls, I was touched and a little amused that in their Purloin segment, they borrowed my segment, Something I Really Like. I was amused by this because I didn't make that up. I think at least 4 other podcasts have used it to the point where I'm not sure where to trace that from. But I seem to be the only one still standing who's using it, I think. But anyway, you're very welcome to use it, ladies. Please send it back when you're done with it. So let's get on to what's on my hooks and needles. It's been a really interesting week in my knitting life because last episode you may recall that most of my projects were stalled in some way. Well, we've suddenly gotten this jolt forward for everything. First of all, the Spectrum socks. Well, they really are going to be socks because I could not locate my long sparkly mitts. And if you look, you will see a picture of them in the show notes down under what I'm wearing. The long sparkly mitts have stellina in them, and they're gorgeous. And I really don't want 2 long pairs, but if the long sparkly mitts were missing, I was going to make the Spectrum socks into long mitts because they're such an amazing colorway. But no. The Spectrum socks are the colorway Roy G. Biv, from Rock and String Yarn, and they're just beautiful. On sock number 1, I have passed the waste yarn for the Afterthought heel, and I'm very excited about these. In the meantime, the Wild Lettuce Shawl, which was my newest lace project, and it's a pattern by Fickle Knitter, alias Michelle Miller. It's free on Ravelry. It's just breathtaking. Easy lace, but Michelle's usually is pretty straightforward and easy. I was stalled on that because my needles were not long enough. I think they are now. I think I got the new needles, and I think that that's going to be enough. I hope so. I really can't wait to get back to it because on the body of the shawl there's 8 repeats, and I'd gotten up to the place where you're doing 5 repeats of the main pattern. So I'm looking forward to getting that onto the knitted on edge. And that is in MCN from Sterling Ridge, alias Fiber Files, in the colorway Pacifica. I don't think you can get this yarn. I don't think she's still dying. Let me tell you right now, Sterling Ridge starts to die again, I will buy from her. Meanwhile, there was Twin Faces vest, because after all, it's February, which is vestuary for me. Do a vest every February. Twin Faces vest got stalled just under the armpits and sent to her, put on waste yarn and sent to her. It is way too big for her. Oh darn, I may have to adopt it. We'll see if I'm going to adopt it or just rip it out. But it was good because we finally got a lot closer to what her chest size is, because I will be darned if I'm making her a full-size pullover sweater with such poor measurements as I already have. You know, I'm willing to get the arms, to send them back and forth and correct the arms several times if I have to, but I am not willing to keep correcting length and circumference. So the purpose of this vest was to get that worked out. And so now she tells me her chest size, which is 4 inches smaller than the last time she told me. This is why you don't knit her a full-size sweater until you've had a chance to run something by her. But that's not just her. It's also, this sweater really is bulky because I was reverse engineering, I think, my brick. And looking at it, I think my brick is a little big on me too. So, yeah, so that's okay. I don't mean to blame it all on Twin Face, but thank goodness I tried this on her, because I can easily take 4 inches off it, and she'll still have a somewhat baggy sweater. I think in Ann Budd's book, the best bet might be to go with a 34-inch chest to get her good negative ease, but I'm afraid that's too small. But we'll see. At this point, I'm looking at making it at 36 inches, and maybe a little baggy or an inch or two of positive ease can be lived with. But anyway, so that's sitting in North Carolina, and she's going to shove it in a big envelope and send it back. The Pony Express took 3 weeks to get it there, so let's see what they do getting it back, which is good because I really want to start another sweater because I'm finishing my own vest, and I don't want to start another sweater until I have her vest well along. But that vest, these vests are so easy, and that's another reason to make her one, is that this is kind of a no-fail recipe. Oh God, I hope I'm not dooming myself by saying that. But you do the basic vest, and it doesn't have to be a perfect fit, but I will get a sense of her fit from it, and then I can move on to do just a plain top-down sweater like a brick. And then there's my vest. I'm calling it the Pines vest, and I have done it up to the armpits in the round, and then I've done the back, and now I'm going on to the V-neck front, which is really nice because you knit the front all the way across for 3 inches, while shaping the bottoms of the armholes. And then you're just knitting straight on the back for a total of 9 inches, but on the front you divide, put half the stitches on a holder, and you start shaping one side of the V-neck. This goes ridiculously fast, because once you divide, you've only got 37 stitches on each half, and you're decreasing all the way up the V. So this just gets idiotically fast by the end. So I whipped through the first side of the V, and now I have the needles run through the waist yarn, and now I just have to go up the second side of the V. So tonight, with any luck, I may get it finished up to that point. Then, of course, you're going to seam the shoulders. I'm going to seam the shoulders and put in the V-neck and the 1x1 ribbing around the armholes. So this is very exciting because I'm getting close to a finished sweater there. Finally, there's the temperature blanket, and this is the great joy of my life right now. Who knew? It's a single crochet, straight line, rectangle blanket. I am not doing anything special with it. It is not corner to corner. It is not in a zigzag. Nope, it's nothing like that. Its edges are probably not as even as I'd like. It's in a sport weight. I don't care. If the edges aren't even enough, I can doctor the edging a bit by putting a concentric square of lacy yarn around it. I don't care. I just want this thing to lie on the top of my bed. Right now, I've gotten up to February 26th, which is terrific since today is February 28th. I've actually got February 26th in that whole line with just like 2 stitches at the end, and then I turn to February 27th. I'm loving this thing. It's very, very pretty. It's in Knit Picks Brava, which is a terrifically inexpensive yarn, and I got it in a kit, which meant I got 2 free patterns, both the crochet and the knitted Hue Shift blanket, both of which are breathtakingly pretty. So I might find myself going back and buying another kit and making those, or one of them, because they're really pretty. But I love, love, love my temperature blanket. It's completely randomized based on the temperature. And it's coming out to look really interesting, and you just can't wait to get on to the next color. Now, February was mostly the same 2 colors. It's got January 1st at the top. And you can see where February is mostly these 2 different blue-greens. I think it's Alfalfa and Tranquil. And then towards the end of February, we suddenly get 2 bright yellow days where it was in the 70s. Now, here's what this does to you. I get up every morning, I look up what the high temperature is supposed to be, and I go, oh, it's an alfalfa yarn day, or oh, it's a canary day. And you actually start thinking that way. It's not good for your brain. Like, you memorize which colors go with which temperature ranges. The other thing is you really do have to choose, is this a calendar or a temperature blanket? Calendar blanket, you're going to use significant yarn color changes to show special events. So you could read it like this kind of yarny journal of your year. I opted against that, although I may try that at least in a scarf, because that's a really interesting approach to the world. However, as a temperature blanket, all you're doing is you're knitting a blanket of about 365 rows, and you're letting the row colors be totally randomized based on the temperature. And this leads to some really interesting things. Like if you look in January, well, it's January to me. About mid-January, you suddenly have warm weather. It's bright canary yellow. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days later, you've got really cold weather. The color is celestial, a very dark blue. So it's really fun the way this bounces back and forth. And I did not expect to like it this much. So I am recommending the temperature blanket. It's a really fun project. And again, I'm just doing 1 row single crochet for every day of the year. By the way, with 2 months done, it's on track to be about 72 inches. What am I wearing? Right now I am wearing my good old Regia socks. You've seen them before. They're white with blue and green flecks. The heel is in a contrast, a striped yarn, I think from Rock and String. I think it's one of her holiday colors. And so I'm wearing them, and they're good, reliable creatures in my nice, happy Crocs. I'm also wearing my brick sweater today, knit in Malabrigo Rios Archangel. It's breathtakingly beautiful, if I do say so myself. Brings out my signature color of rose. And also there's a picture of the long sparkly mitts. Those are in a colorway called Vampire Queen in the, I think it's called Pride, which is a sock yarn with stellina in it. And I think it's also wool, and I think it's merino and nylon from Forbidden Fiber. If you look in the bottom picture, you will see the cuff of my beautiful Agnes sweater, which is in Aurora Heather, the colorway, from Knit Picks yarn in Wool of the Andes Superwash Bulky. Ooh, I can't wait to do my next Agnes. I've got the pile of yarn for it sitting right next to me here, and I can't wait to do another Agnes. Those things come flying off your needles. If you want a really nice first sweater, Agnes is it. There's no short rows, nothing. It's just the back is the front is the back. As simple and straightforward, but a great way to learn the raglan top-down sweater. I feel like I'm a little out of order here, but I'll do it. Dizzy Blondes, I have nothing to say. I'm still waiting for my electric eel wheel, but Maurice, the designer, has posted a tracking system so we can watch the parts cross the ocean and come to him when he will then do his final assembly and send them to us. Now it's looking like late April. I have to say this is unusual. Maurice is famous for doing these innovative wheels that are printed on a 3D printer, basically. The parts are printed, which keeps the cost really low. And he's famous for bringing these in well made and on time. So it's a little surprising it's late, but I can't say I'm worried about it. Right now I haven't got the faintest inclination to spin. We'll see if that changes. But I think it's because it's winter, and I really like working on the heavy stuff, particularly the sweaters in winter. You know, lightweight spinning like that is really great in the summer, particularly when you're using an e-wheel of any kind, because you don't have all this heavy stuff in your lap and you're winding it onto the bobbin. You know, you're not carting around. A friend of mine used to say it's like having a small animal in your lap. You're not carting around this whole sweater while you do the last arm and you're flipping the entire thing, arm and body and neck over on your lap. Something I really like. Well, first of all, I keep talking about e-ink, and I'm going to stop. But it was brought to my attention this week, just randomly came up on the internet, that the Apple iPen now has a program where you can take notes and it does optical character recognition, OCR, from your handwriting. I have to hand it to the Apple people for this, because the more I think about e-ink products, Apple just didn't go there. As far as I know, they've never gone there. And they just didn't see it as something in the Apple world, for whatever reason. And I would have to say they're probably right, because Sony made an e-ink tablet. It's considered the best Surface, the most paper-like, but it just is not good in many other ways. It really gets low ratings despite the great Surface. And for me, that's what we're in it for, is the Surface. So for Sony to get bad ratings, I can't imagine. It's usually because it's so clunky to try to transfer files and all that. And for me, Remarkable solved that the best, as I've said. But, you know, Apple, I'm pretty sure, did a feasibility study and just said, we don't want to go this direction right now. But I kind of salute them, because they did figure out that this handwriting to OCR thing could be very useful. Now, if you're a fan of the MobiScribe, which is what most people who use it use to replace their tablet, the Remarkable doesn't try to do that. The Remarkable is simply a writing pad, an electronic writing pad with a great surface. The MobiScribe gave up some of the great surface because it tried to push in a lot of Android functionality. And so I find it a lot clunkier. I don't like the size as much. I don't think it's built as well. I don't like the surface nearly as much as the Remarkable. But, you know, if you want this one thing where you can have a sort of paper surface and handwrite a lot of notes in high volume and have ebooks and other Android functions, that's the MobiScribe. Well, I have to tell you, with Apple having an iPen that now does a pretty decent OCR. I haven't tested it. I have an iPen. In fact, I'm looking at it. And I should go look up the program. Maybe I'll go back and test it. This does not appeal to me in the least. Again, my glass surface tablets are not comfortable writing surfaces for me. I have carpal tunnel in both wrists. And a slick surface is just going to make the carpal tunnel go crazy. And I know, I've tried. I gave all this stuff a test drive, whereas the Remarkable Surface, no carpal tunnel issues. So, you know, I'm not going to ever be able to use a glass top surface on a tablet, Android or iOS. But if you can, and if you're not heavily invested in the paper type writing surface, you might be just fine on your iPad now that they're doing that. I mean, I think it's a brilliant idea. If you're that invested in Apple, I mean, it's never going to fly for me, I'll be honest, because I really want that paper surface. I really want that natural friction. But, you know, if you really only take the occasional note into a text program that will read your iPen, sure. Again, the charging the iPen is a big factor for me, because I had to charge mine a lot when I was using it more actively, and that made me finally really throw it over for the Remarkable. But, you know, if that's your gig, good for you. I want to let you know that iPen now does optical character recognition. So if you're into that platform, that's a good place to be. So much for equal time for Android and Apple. I have no idea if Android's doing any of this. I'm pretty sure by now Android I know has styluses that they sell at places like Best Buy for the Android. So I know they must have something, but I'm not an Android tablet user right now. I've used them in the past. I've never gotten comfortable with the Android platform because they kept changing from candy bar to candy bar, and it just drove me nuts. Half the apps wouldn't work on it. So anyway, I'm still over on Apple. My Apple does many things, my tablets, but they are not my notepad of choice. To be honest, I use the Remarkable, and I occasionally will dip into the Rocket Book Mini if I want to carry something small and a little less fragile. The Remarkable is not highly fragile, but the Rocket books are practically bulletproof. Okay, meanwhile, back to something I really like. Harry Potter Knitting Magic, and the official knitting book to the Harry Potter world. Now, if you're not a Potterhead, skip ahead a few minutes. For those of us who are loyal Potterheads, Warner Brothers gave us a field day when they made the Harry Potter movies. They took very seriously the author's injunction that Molly Weasley is a big-time knitter. And they went crazy in the movie using as much woolen as they could in the Weasley family. You can see it when you look at the movies, but you know it if you read Harry Potter Knitting Magic, because it is a beautifully produced book, and the photography is excellent. They put in tidbits about behind-the-scenes information, and they're very explicit about the Weasley family took an enormous amount of work on the woolens because they really wanted to honor that they look homespun, and Molly's knitting usable clothing for them. And so there is knitting galore in the Warner Brothers Harry Potter movies, and it's just a feast. I mean, we used to go to those things and watch for it. What will Hermione be wearing? And so what's nice about this book, Tanis Gray wrote it, or at least edited and wrote a lot of it, and she really picks up some of the best patterns floating around on the internet for Harry Potter. I do not believe probably the most famous pattern after the scarves, after the house scarves, is probably Hermione's everyday socks. I don't think they're in this book. I do believe they made another Harry Potter collection, but not this one. However, there's socks by Spilly Jane. You're going to recognize a lot of people in this. And they really include, or I should say she, Tanis Gray, really includes some of the best. Of course, there's a pattern for the scarves. It is the newer version that appears in the third movie and more recently. The old version, where they're equal bars of the two colors of each house, was replaced in the third movie, I believe it's the third one, with a pattern that is, for example, in Gryffindor, it's mostly red. You have big blocks of red, scarlet, and then you have 3 bars, narrow bars of gold with narrow bars of red between them, then another big block of red. So that's the pattern you get. And she preserves the idea that Warner Brothers came up with, which is it's knitted in tube. They're meant to be very thick. They're great scarves. I'm looking at mine, which is in the original pattern, the even bars, hanging on the back of my door, done in an acrylic, for which I'm deeply grateful. I wear it all the time down to Universal. I used to before we all were locked out. And I can't wait. I'm looking at the edge of my cloak as well. When you buy clothes at Universal Studios in their Harry Potter, their Hogwarts land, I guess I'd call it Hogsmeade land, the clothes are extremely well made and extremely high quality, with one exception, the Bloomin' scarves. They're cheap and garbage. So you can sort of tell who you're looking at by the scarf they're wearing when you're walking around that area in Universal Studios. I'm just saying. I get mistaken often for an employee because I wear higher level fan cosplay. So people are always asking me for instructions and such. I carry a wand. I often carry a stuffed Hedwig, and she often moves because I've gotten really good at that, and it will stop traffic, let me tell you. It's a lot of fun to cosplay down at Universal, I'm just saying. So anyway, going back to the book, it's a terrific book. The photography is beautiful. The instructions are great. You're going to recognize a lot of old favorites. One of the problems in fan books is often really stupid patterns make it into these books, where you just say, who on earth would make that? I have to hand it to Tanis Gray. These are good patterns. There's a few where I sort of scratched my head and said, never in a million years. But what really impressed me, there are a couple of pullover cardigans or jumpers if you're British, and they have patterns that could easily be adapted and played with. Surprisingly, I really like the Owlpost one that has a beautiful bit of cablery over the yoke. And apparently you knit the cable, and then it looks like you knit it, and I think you graft the ends, and then you pick up stitches on both directions and knit it. So it's not child's play, even as cable knitting goes. And at the bottom, though, she has you hem it in a contrast color. So at the bottom, you're going to change to a contrast color, and you're going to spell out the words. I think it says by owl post. And then you turn it in and hem it by knitting that last row against one of the earlier rows to make like a double thickness, like a hem. So you have this secret message inside the hem. Okay, if you know me, you know that's never going to work. You know I'm just going to turn that hem outwards and put the words by owl post where everybody can see them. But I mean, I really like this sweater. There are two other yoke sweaters. They look like top downs. I haven't read them that carefully, but I believe they're top down. One features the golden snitch in a really pretty yoke with a solid body and then a little contrast border down by the hem and at the cuffs. And there's another one that is all these Wizarding World symbols. And they go all the way down the sweater in bands. So you know, you could just do the neck down to the cats and stop there and do the rest in a solid color and then just do one of the other motifs at the hem. Or you can do all the motifs. You know darn right well I'm not doing all the motifs, but I can't wait to just do that sweater down to the cats, because I think a yoke sweater with those cats on it and some other Harry Potter symbols above it. There's one or two symbols above it. I forget what's above it. I'm sure it's like lightning bolts and sorting hats or something. But I can't wait to do that sweater. I think it would be a blast to do it. So these are really good patterns. They've got some gorgeous Nordic mitts in it. Just very, very handsome. And I also have to say, they pick up some interesting motifs without making them look idiotic, which is a real plus. That when, again, fans do books, they often really want to base something, for example, on Luna Lovegood's Spectre Specs, and they just come up with some idiotic pattern, but it is the Spectre Specs. They didn't do that in this book. In fact, the Spectre Specs, I believe, are in Nordic mitts, and they are fabulous looking. I don't know, I mean, if you know what you're looking at, you'll know they're Harry Potter Spectre Specs, Luna Spectre Specs. If you're not a Harry Potter fan, you'll look at them and go, those are fantastic mitts. So I really, really like this book. I think Tennis Gray has done a wonderful job on this. If you are a Potterhead or you knit for a Potterhead, this is an excellent book. The other thing is, sometimes when fan books give up, they do 30 throws. Here are 30 throws, because we couldn't figure out how to make this into a sweater, so we made it into a throw. This book, refreshingly, does not make 35 throws and pillows. Also refreshingly, it would not take a lot to take some of those motifs and knit them into a very beautiful throw. Extra points, there is a fantastic scarf that is modes of transportation in the magical world, and it is spectacularly beautiful, and I never thought I'd say that about a scarf with double-decker buses on it. So this is Harry Potter Knitting Magic. The link is in the show notes. It really is this wonderful homage to really the Warner Brothers set designs for the Harry Potter movies. And also, it's got lovely tidbits about behind the scenes and how things were made. It is just a blast if you're a Potterhead. It definitely will stay on my shelf. It has a great place on my shelf, and I can't wait to knit some of the projects. Okay, let's see. Strategy. Okay, we were doing the acronym ACCEPTS from Dialectical Behavioral Therapy, and ACCEPTS is about how you manage your distress. Alias, distress tolerance skills. And of course, ACCEPTS is accepting that you can manage yourself through distraction. That's how you remember the acronym. It's actually with an S at the end, though, ACCEPTS. And we're on the S, and the S stands for sensory, as in, when you are losing your marbles, you're probably too much in your head. Your thoughts are running amok, you feel out of control, your thoughts are racing, your thoughts are repetitive, they won't go away. Now, you remember last week we did T for thought stopping. That's one great solution, but sensory is another one. And sensory means get out of your head, and the way you do that is you get into your senses. Last week I was joking, I believe, that there's nothing about breathing. Well, this is where breathing lives. You can get into your body by taking deep breaths. And you've heard me talk about breathing for years because it's so central to what I do and what I teach. Breathing is always at the core of mindfulness, leveling your breath out. And it turns out, as I said before, there's a really good reason. When you inhale, that is exciting to your body based on the fact that it activates the sympathetic nervous system. When you exhale, that is calming to your body because it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So we are always going to talk about breathing because it is huge in mindfulness and in calming yourself. However, since I've already talked about breathing, there's also things like the sensory rescue kit. before you ask, yes, I actually carry one of these in my knitting bag usually. Small Ziploc bag with things you can use to stimulate your senses. Take it everywhere with you. I keep 4 things in it. I keep earphones, Bluetooth earphones for my phone, because I can listen to music. So that's one way to get into my senses, is to start listening and focusing on the music. I carry an emery board, because it's always good to be able to follow your nails, but also that's sensory, as is rubbing your finger across the rough surface. So that's for touch and hearing. And then I used to use Starburst fruit chews. Now I use sugar-free Ricola natural cough drops, because you need a burst of flavor, and that will awaken your taste buds. So that's taste. And then I also got a roller ball at Walmart. They have a whole rack of these things in all different flavors, all different sizes and costs. I got a little roller ball for about $2.50, and it is citrus pineapple scented, because I happen to like citrus. It wakes you up. If you want something relaxing, you can go for lavender as a scent. I also like spearmint, I must say, as a stimulating scent. But anyway, I carry the roller ball with me, and I can just rub it under my nose, on my top lip. You can use chapstick, use something like Burt's Bees for much the same effect, that you will get touch on your lips and also the smell under your lips. But anyway, the only thing that's missing from my sensory pack is the visual, because that's on my phone. I use photos on my phone to calm myself. So you can carry a little sensory rescue kit to help yourself calm down. You can give one to your kids and teach them to use it, and let them pick the things they put in it. But it's a really great way to calm yourself down, okay? So there are lots of other ways to do it. When someone dissociates in my office, and yes, it happens because I do treat PTSD, often I will tell them, touch the corner of the desk, where it comes to a point. Like you want something not sharp, but slightly pointed, because that will wake them up. That will make them focus on their fingertips. You can tell someone to touch a textured surface, like I'm looking at the stucco wall in my studio here. So you can touch something. That's one of the easiest things. Another way to come, and this is, you can hear mindfulness. You're coming into this moment. Another way to do that is to look at whatever you're working on. Like, for example, right now I'm looking at my recorder, my little handheld recorder, and it tells me that today is February 28th, 2021. And if I really look, I can find the time on it, but I'm not seeing that right now. I know it's on there. I can look at the top edge of the tablet where I have my notes for this episode, and I can see it is 8:32 p.m. on Sunday, February 28th. And that's a way to bring yourself into this moment. It's more mindfulness than sensory, but I'll throw it in here. Because if you're upset, if something's upsetting you, one of the best things you can do is stop and orient yourself to day, date, and time. Sunday, February 28th, 8:32 p.m., 2021. Because that makes you realize you're thinking about the past, or you're throwing yourself into a negative future that hasn't happened and may never happen. Okay? But all of these things are ways to halt your thinking, and when you use your 5 senses, to bring yourself into your body. If you've ever lived in Britain, all my British listeners, a nod to you. The Brits have this one cold. When I was in Britain, I found out my father was dying. This was many years ago. Every single British person in the dorm tried to make me drink a cup of hot, strong, sweet tea. Okay? They know what they're doing, because they recognize you're going into shock, and they'll use the tea for it. When I was at Stitches Southwest in 2019, November of 2019, and I heard there was a school shooting, a mass shooting in my son's school district, I got cold all over, and I literally ran out of a session with the very gifted crocheting teacher there and ran into Starbucks and said, "Give me the hottest, strongest tea you've got really fast. I need it now. I'm going into shock." And the barista looked at me and said, "Oh my God, you're white as a sheet," and handed me hot tea and said, "I can give you hot coffee." And I said, No, I need tea. Okay, so hats off to you, Brits. That's a brilliant intervention. It is a sensory intervention. It focuses you on your mouth. The heat warms you up. The caffeine stimulates you and actually helps you to think more clearly. It's just a wonderful piece of sensory intervention when you're freaking out. So, at any rate, we are now done accepts, which is about distraction. We're going to move on to improve, the acronym that is about, if you can't distract, improve this moment, fix the moment you're in as best you can. But we will probably do a sidestep into mindfulness along the way. Put a lid on it. Well, we are totally having Ramertoff love around here. My husband dug out an old cookbook, though, that was very interesting because it's called Cook in Clay with Your Glazed Schlimmertoff, which Ramertoff seems to either have been the co-inventor or bought him out. I can't tell which. But this cookbook's from the 70s. It's amazing. It's got typewriter script in it for the recipes. So now we've got two good Ramertoff cookbooks, one from the company, recently published and translated from the German, and the other, this very old Cook in Clay book. And they both have great recipes. And we are treating the Ramertoff like the kitchen goddess it is. Very, very happy with it. Oh, shoot. Well, I am walking my 30 minutes per day, or trying to. The windstorms have interfered. But I'm also working on my project to sleep better. And I'm a little concerned because I think my Fitbit is not accurate. I'm really disturbed. It's not like they're really precision accurate to begin with. But I think I'm not wearing it tightly enough against my skin because I'm not getting good skin contact at night because it's showing way lower sleep than I know I'm getting. So I'm working on that. But it is nice because one of the things is this has made me mindful of my sleep. When you are postmenopausal, as I am, sleep is an issue for women. And so it really helps to work on the sleep. So at night I'm taking magnesium. It's just Trader Joe's. I think I'm looking right at it. 200 milligrams at night and in the morning. And I also take 5 milligrams of melatonin at night. And I also take 1 Benadryl because I tend to congest overnight. I'm sleeping really well. It's really, really improved. And I feel so much better. And I'm much less prone to panic or anxiety. So that's been great. But Project Fitbit, not working as well as I'd like. But I think that's my own fault. I think I am not keeping it as close to my skin as I should. Meanwhile, yes, there are apps for YesFit and for Walking for Fun. And you may remember from last time, yes.fit and then Walking for Fun. Those are websites. There are links in the show notes from last week. And also the top right of the cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com page has a link to Walking for Fun. And these, of course, are long-distance walks that you can run them, you can walk them, you can bike them. And you can track it, and they will show you Google Earth pictures along the route you're following. So in Walking for Fun, I'm on a pilgrimage trail from the northeast of France, across the north of France, and across the north of Spain. I'm pretty close to the coast of Spain right now, about 60 miles out. But that's not very close. But this was a long trail. Before this, I walked the Pacific Crest Trail on Walking for Fun, and I really recommend it. That was great. That was great. Walking for Fun, you can go in every day on their site and log your experiences in the real world and tell them what you think of it. It's a lot of fun. In YesFit, that's a walk-run racing app where you can get medals at the end of the races. You can buy a medal for yourself. You can buy a t-shirt. I don't like the quality of the t-shirts, or I would have a lot more of them. But it is an awful lot of fun. And some of the t-shirts were irresistible. I think I was walking around wearing Viking Conquest for quite a while till I just killed it. But anyway, YesFit is running / walking / biking, swimming, whatever you want, as long as you can track yourself manually or by hooking in a Fitbit or a Garmin watch. Both of these are a great way to incentivize your walking, that every day after I walk, I get to go in and look up any mile markers and photos. And on Walking for Fun, I can also log stuff. So I'm having a great time with these. So let's roll on to the blather. Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
So let's get on to the blather. And there's a few things. One is hats off to the Knitmore girls, as I said, for purloining something I really like. I was also amused because Gigi, in Mother Knows Best, talked about affirmations. We'll get to that. That's the E of improve. You girls are cheating. You're coming over here on cognitive territory. No, it was nice to hear. Because one of the things you're going to figure out, I hope, is that when you're learning these skills, you want to learn them from as many different people and as many different perspectives and directions as you can get. It's very, very useful to hear somebody else's take on this stuff. So feel free, girls. I was kind of pleased to hear you doing affirmations, or as we call it, self-encouragement. Next, the J&J vaccine. Johnson & Johnson got their vaccine approved. And And I want to talk about what that means in real terms, because I think there's going to be the usual idiotic rumors. First off, I am now 11 days out from my Moderna shot. No side effects. Everything's great. I had 26 hours of side effects. They weren't bad. And it's nowhere near as scary as COVID, let me tell you. You just take the day off from work when you get your shot. I'm 60 years old and I made it with 26 hours. You're fine. Okay. Pfizer is known for having fewer, if any, side effects. J&J is not supposed to have bad side effects. We don't really know yet. We haven't heard enough about people in the real world getting their shots. What you are going to hear about Johnson & Johnson is Pfizer has a 95% reliability against catching COVID. Moderna has 94.5%. Johnson & Johnson, I've heard it put at anything from 65 to 75%. That sounds bad, except it's not. And I'll tell you why. The biggest factor is that number means how likely you are to catch COVID. However, in all of the vaccines, nobody died. They did have one person with anaphylactic shock from the Johnson & Johnson, which of course they caught and stuck an EpiPen in them, one assumes. But nobody has died of COVID with these vaccines. They seem to be 100% nobody dies. And nobody got seriously ill, if I understood the article I read correctly. So you're talking about, yeah, you might have a higher chance of getting COVID and having some symptoms, but you're not going to get really sick with J&J. However, you can't even really say that because Moderna and Pfizer were developed before a lot of the mutations of the virus presented. So the theory is the Johnson & Johnson may actually prevent more of the mutated versions than Pfizer and Moderna. So now that 95 and 94.5% against the 65 to 75%, that's pretty hard to read side by side. They're really hard to compare now because of that. The other thing, Pfizer is very hard to preserve. It has to be kept at incredibly cold temperatures. Batches are going bad. And you got to get 2 shots. Higher risk of having a hard time getting your second shot. J&J, 1 shot, you're done. The fact that it only takes 1 shot for J&J means if we vaccinate a lot of people really quickly, we're going to get to herd immunity much faster. Now, if we're walking around in a world where your doctor has 95% immunity, I have 94.5% as your therapist, and you have 75% immunity, and nobody's going to die, sounds like a good world to me. That, in other words, the huge advantage of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is how fast it can be spread around, how fast you can disperse it, because people only need 1 shot. So when you hear about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, please try to take in stride that vaccine gives us this potential ability to really disperse the vaccine among the population much, much faster because you don't have to get that second shot. And the faster everybody gets that shot, the better we are all going to be. This leads to me pointing out something. Somebody was talking about all the sheeple getting their shots. All right, I'm going to talk back to that as a knitter, but also as a therapist. You can be a sheep. Sheep do many things that are useful. They band together for safety, and that is how they have survived. They do really well that way. They are humane. They put the innocent and the weak on the inside, and the outer ring is the strongest sheep, and they protect their young. Sheep are useful. They give wool, they give meat, they give milk, they give cheese. Okay? I personally could be called a lot worse things, and in fact I probably have, than a sheep. But here's what I'm not going to be. A lemming. Lemmings have one leader who they worship and they follow blindly. And when that leader takes them to the edge of a cliff and says, walk off, or go up to the Capitol and have a good time, all the little lemmings go do it. And as the lemmings are falling into the ocean or the FBI holding cells, all the way down they're saying, but I followed the leader. Yeah, that's a lemming. Humans have survived the way we have because we act like sheep, because we band together behind the strong and the wise, and we protect each other. Cooperative behavior. is the secret of humanity's success. Lemmings are not known for cooperation unless they're being idiots and going off cliffs. So let me say this to you. Next time somebody calls you a sheep or a sheeple, bow back at them and thank them and wish them luck. Lemmings have a really short lifespan. Okay, and I'm going to end this with my son and I got into watching some videos together today. We started watching the James Corden series of carpool karaoke's, and the one where Tom Cruise makes him go skydiving is paralyzingly funny. We were both screaming with laughter. The other one where he's talking to Prince Harry is very interesting. It really is, and Harry comes off as very normal and approachable. Although, there's certain privilege there you just can't avoid. But the one that I really liked is with Sir Paul McCartney, and the link is in the show notes. And it's about 20 minutes, and it's just beautiful. And it's Paul McCartney motoring around Liverpool with James Corden, and they're singing, and they're talking to people, and they're visiting famous sites related to the Beatles and to McCartney's life. And the ending is wonderful. I won't spoil what they do, but it's just wonderful. It's so happy and so wonderful. And there's some genuinely emotionally moving moments where McCartney talks about loss and faith. And it's so beautiful. And at one point, James Corden breaks down. It's so beautiful. So if you're down and you need some happiness today, go follow the link or just go to YouTube and search Carpool Karaoke with Paul McCartney. It's just a gift. And so on that happy note, I'm going to say, all my beloved sheep, let's stick together, protect each other. And that means it's time to get your vaccination if you're at all eligible. And in the meantime, we are all wearing our masks, right? We are social distancing. We are washing our hands. And most important of all, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.